Welcome to Beyond the Portrait. Paraphrase Shakespeare, all the world's a stage and we are merely players. Theater is life and life is theater. To start, this episode was recorded before the 2024 presidential election in the United States. My initial plan was to air this episode the day after Election Day, thinking we wouldn't know the results at that point. The horror and the despair that overcame me in those early hours of November 6th, I texted my producer Juan that we would not be releasing this episode, or any episode, until further notice. I was also feeling pretty protective. This interview was with one of my very best friends, Kiara Brown-Clark, and I was so excited to share it with you, but I just couldn't bring myself to release it. It felt very wrong to air in that moment. After the dust settled, it was important for me that we do hear her message because they only win if they still are joy. Kiara is embodied joy. She is, of course, multifaceted, as we all are, with the multitudes that we all carry, and I know she's going to call me ridiculous when she hears this intro, but as a reminder to those listening or to watching, my gift is to see what is special and unique about a person, and then amplify it to the masses. That is my gift. My purpose is to shout that message from the rooftops because everyone needs to hear it. I know the people I care about and who I choose to amplify and share their stories, they will help heal the world. It starts with them. Now more than ever, I am committed to this goal, to share the beauty in this world, the people who create impact, because that is why we are alive in this moment. So I may be ridiculous, but I'm also not wrong. I affectionately refer to Kiara as a real-life Disney princess because she brings charm, wit, and glamour everywhere she goes. She does in fact work for Disney on Broadway, the proper name of Disney Theatrical Group. She's a choreographer, educator, formerly a performer on Broadway, and she's a Tony Award-nominated producer for Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club that came back to Broadway earlier this year. She's an exceptional human being and has more roles than I mentioned here. She is my soul sister, who brings her welcoming and open-hearted spirit wherever she goes. She is magic, and I know I walk a little bit lighter with more kick in my step when I am with her. And I know she has that effect on everyone around her. Magical pixie dust, if you will. Without further ado, Kiara Brown-Clark. I'm so happy to see you.
I am so happy to see you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. We're going to have so much fun today. So for the audience, I would love it if you could introduce yourself, say a little bit about what you do, where you live, your pronouns, all the things.
Amazing. Hi, everyone. My name is Kiara Brown-Clark, and I am a native New Yorker. Yeah, a rare breed. I know that we are. I currently live in Hell's Kitchen in New York City, and my pronouns are she, her.
Fantastic. Well, I love that you're a native New Yorker because I feel like as a transplant, we are a city of transplants. So you're right. You are quite a rare breed. And I remember when I had my 10-year anniversary, you as a New Yorker dubbed me as a true New Yorker. So I felt very special about that. Thank you.
10 years. It takes a decade to really get acclimated to the city, but once you're here and you're doing it, babe.
Thanks, babe. All right. Well, so growing up in New York, that's such a cool childhood. And, and you learned and probably saw a lot of things that not everybody has access to. So I am sure that you had some kind of core memories that kind of impact how you see the world. So do you have anything that comes to mind about core memories of growing up in New York and certain things that shaped how you see the world?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to grow up in New York, Long Island, New York City, and just have the arts and like some of the greatest art that you can imagine, and performing arts in particular, in my backyard. So my parents are not in the industry at all, and they are medicine and finance and all those things, but so far removed from what I've grown to love and has become a part of my identity. And just growing up, we were always exposed, my brother and I, always exposed to the greatest dance companies, and we were playing every instrument, and let's go see, a performance. Let's go see a musical. Let's go see an opera. Let's go to Lincoln Center. Like, my mom in particular was such an advocate and still is an advocate for the arts. And I think she instilled that in my family and my brother and I. So I was so lucky. So lucky.
What a beautiful way to grow up. Yeah, I think New York, kids that are born in New York, I think have a bit of a leg up in terms of just developmentally because they have so much stimulus that they're constantly being thrown at them that they have to adapt. And so like the street smarts are a real thing. And I think when I moved to New York at 26, I was very much felt like a country girl who didn't know which way to do anything. And so it was, yeah, I think if you grew up in New York, you definitely have a leg up in that way. So you started dance really quite young. So can you talk a little bit about like your early years in musical theater?
Yeah, my early career, I was just not even in musical theater. I was dancer, dances, a chorus line. Like I was in class, every kind of dance there was: ballet, jazz, tap, African, hip hop. Yeah, I mean, like whatever it was, I wanted to be in dance class all the time. And so grew up, started dancing at like 3 years old, which is wild to even think about. And that became the constant in my life. So out of everything, education was super important, traveling was important, all these things in my family, being well rounded and exposed, but dance was always the constant. And I would always find myself going back to my happy place, which was the dance studio. And so through the years, I would stay with the dance studio for a certain amount of time and then move to another. But then as I started getting older and appreciating the different, not just the different forms of dance that I loved, but also how your experience can shift from one studio or one dance company to another. And I found myself bouncing around a bit just for the sake of exposure and having a different experience and perspective for something that I potentially would come to do or wanted to do in life. So I thought at the time. And so at one point in time, doing all the things, all the dance things in high school, I was diagnosed with scoliosis. And so at this point, it had progressed so far down the road that my doctor highly recommended I had, and it was a recommendation, but also a necessity, that I had spinal surgery, spinal fusion for scoliosis. So all I could think about in my mind, this early high school years, oh my God, like, well, how long am I going to be out of dance for? And so, with something as serious and high risk as spinal surgery, the doctor's like, he, with all his grace and, positivity and hopefulness, I was going to be out for a year. Okay. I didn't really understand what that meant in the moment. I think my mom was more fearful of me not being able to dance. And so fast forward, I had the spinal fusion. I still have titanium metal rights to this day. My doctors were amazing. Same doctors as Gloria Estefan, just letting you know, the best of the best in New York. And they did such an amazing job after this intense, serious surgery that within 2 days of recovery, still in the hospital, I was like popping wheelies in a wheelchair with the physical therapist in the hospital. On my way to recovery. And so I had a pretty quick recovery. I was out for about a year. And then towards the end, I found my way back through physical therapy, through exercise, having specialists all around me, found my way back to dance, but this time a different type of dance, because the reality was, being out of training at that point in my dance life and my dance career, while in high school, I went to a Catholic high school, but I was so fixated on, like, this is the type of dancer I wanted to be. My career goals and my adoration for it shifted a bit. And I found myself in musical theater, and oh, the bug bit me hard. I remember seeing some of my first musicals, not only here in New York City, but I was in every musical in high school from there on out, every musical in college, went on to the creative team side of things while still in the musical, because I wanted to learn everything and anything about performing musical theater. So that's a little bit of the early history of
I love
of
that.
me, of
Well,
Kiki.
yes, yes. Well, so so you were a performer on Broadway. So how did that happen?
So I have such a crazy story when I really think about it. So
Well, the
For
readers
those
or
who
the
don't
listeners
know,
want to know.
Yes, the process of Broadway is different for every person, right? And being a performer in general, not just Broadway. So, I went to undergrad. I have a degree in political science, third world studies, also a degree in dance. It's a dance minor. I worked to make it a dance major, all the things. So always performing. Performing arts were always in my life. Dance was always in my life. Then at one point in college, I said, you know what? I think I should go to grad school just to give me, I wanted the education base of what I pursued in life for my career. And I just found that there was so much more that I needed to learn to be successful for me. Everyone's journey is different. So I pursued this graduate degree. I got accepted to Smith College, which is still one of the loves of my life. I had such a great experience there. I had really amazing people and professors who surrounded me in my journey. Got my master's in dance and choreography with a musical theater minor. And then it was time to really dive into the professional world of performing. I had done summer stocks in between with college and grad school and always performing. So any which way, I found my way performing and or choreographing. So after grad school, I had to take the big dive. I'm like, okay, it's time to get your equity card, time to really dip your toe in the professional life. So I auditioned, did many a show. And then one day, I got a call. I had just signed with an agency, got a call saying, hey, we just want to make sure you're going to show up to this open call for Dreamgirls, the musical. It was for Dreamgirls, the 25th anniversary production, starring Jennifer Holliday, who is the original Dreamgirl, F.B. White. And so I said, yeah, I'm ready. I'm on my way. I'm going to go. Back in the day, you would say crashing an audition if you were not already a part of Actors Equity. So I was non-equity at that point. And I remember going in and I'm like, I'm just going to dress as if I'm already cast as Dina Jones. Like, why is it going to hurt me? I love fashion. I love that 50s, 60s style. So I went in full out with feeling, head to toe, like Dina Jones, already a dream girl. Go in, dance my way through the call, did great, kept getting advanced to different rounds. Like, okay, this is going really well. Like, oh my goodness. They typed me in, which means when we did typecasting in the industry, that I had the look. So right away, I had the look for what they were looking for in casting. And so I got to move through the audition process. Now, this is a day-long situation, different for different people, but this particular audition, we were there for hours and hours and hours. Finally, at the end of my dancing, they asked me to come into a room. And I'm like, great. They're like, we want you to sing for the creative team. I'm like, great. I have my 2 songs ready to go. Awesome. I can do this. Meanwhile, I'm not exactly Mariah Carey, but I can carry a tune. So I was feeling confident. I'm a dancer who can sing, right? I go in and lo and behold, in front of me on this panel of producers, directors, assistant directors, casting folk, was Jennifer Holliday herself. And I'm just like, oh, it was a surreal moment. Like, my mom saw her in the original Dreamgirls on Broadway, and here I am about to sing for Jennifer Holliday for Dreamgirls. I mean, pretty Incredible. Major moment. I leaned into what I usually do is like the comedy and, try to make myself less nervous, but also give them a little bit of my comedic charm. And, I said something, I can't even remember to this day, but I'm like, I'm so sorry, everyone. I have to just take a moment to recognize and admire the original dream girl herself, Jennifer Holliday. And obviously everyone's cracking up. And like, that was just for me. I love you so much. I adore you. She's cracking up. She's like, okay, sing. Great. Sang my song. She's like, great. Come over to the piano with me. I sang for her. We were laughing, had a great time. All the meanwhile, I was so nervous. Like, I think I probably vomited, like, when I left the room. Now that I think about it, like, it was beyond, like, I couldn't even, when you're in something that it's like, oh my God, your dream is actually a reality right now in the moment. And you have that realization, but you can't tap into that emotion just yet because you have to do the thing to get to achieve your dream. That's where I was. So, going with the flow, being my best, like, Broadway Musical Theater South. Long story long, a day or two later, I had a call from my agent. I booked the show. That was the start. That was my first equity break. I got my equity card. I did Dreamgirls 20th anniversary alongside Jennifer freaking Holiday, which I still can't even believe those words come out of my mouth. And then from there, I was just so fortunate to fall into the right situations, and whether it was choreographing a show around the world or being someone's assistant and learning so much, or being an intern situation, I was always performing, always choreographing, always being involved in the creative process. And then I had a moment in time where it was like the Disney the Disney opportunity came knocking, and I still to this day I'm like, wow, that was really a blessing in disguise. And at that point I was in hospitality and bartending and working at a restaurant, like the survival job while I was auditioning and not in a show at the time. And Disney came knocking. So I'm going to pause there because I've been talking this stream of consciousness. It's also really it's lifting my spirit to actually reminisce and speak about it out loud, because I think about it from time to time, but in this fast moving industry and city and world, to talk about it with someone that you care about it makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
I mean, I'm so delighted. I mean, that is kind of the wonderful part. It's like to kind of look back and be like, wow, I did that. And I think that it's so easy to kind of forget where you come from, but then it's like, that's the beautiful part about art too, is it's like an easy way to like remember like those memories. And like, absolutely, that was a pinch me moment. I can imagine. Like, I can't, like, how did your mom take that? Like, that you were actually performing in this, like, like that's just so incredible.
Yeah, my whole family is constantly so supportive, especially because they're not in the industry at all. So it would be the smallest thing, like, okay, everyone, like, I'm going, I'm in a rehearsal right now. And this is before the age of like, let me show you on FaceTime, like where I am right now. But very private. We would have closed rehearsals, but I would be able to like call my mom, say, Mom, we were just like, oh my God, like she would be screaming. Meanwhile, she's like nursing manager at Mount Sinai, like saving lives. And I'm here like jazz hands galore on stage with Jennifer Holiday. So always so supportive. My entire family was always so supportive. I'm very fortunate for them and for that fact.
Well, they're so proud of you, and I've been so fortunate to get to know them. And I think, people who know Kiara affectionately refer to her as Kiki, and it's like, and Kiki's just one of a kind, and I think that like it's something like that is really lovely to think back on, because now you're like you've really like climbed the ranks of Broadway and have done so many amazing things, and it's really special and cool, I think, to think about the kind of early stages, because it's at that time, especially when your family isn't from this world. I mean, finance and in medical, it's like often, how many of us have parents who didn't understand our calling to be artists? It's like, so and also so you're quite brilliant. And so is your brother. Like, you have a political science degree as well. And so I think the fact is, like, you leaned into the arts, and so did your brother, it's like, and I think that that's like, it's really cool that your parents have been able to foster that in you. And yeah, I just think that it's really, it's so cool. So, and you had done Mary Poppins, right? So that's kind of how the Disney job kind of came to be, right? It was they met you through Mary Poppins.
Yes. And I mean, the true story of it is that, I had gone down to Florida and I was auditioning for an equity performing job in Disney World, and they took me all the way through the audition. And so I'm like, oh, Disney, yay, this is so amazing, like a foot in the door. And simultaneously I had been in auditions for other Disney shows, but they just, for some reason, there's a waiting period, or I wasn't right at the time. So I went down to Florida, auditioned for Disney World. They were like, we love you, yay. I'm like, great, I'm gonna be a kid of the kingdom dancing on the main stage in front of the castle. Nope. Just kidding. Joke's on you, Kiki. They actually brought me into like the underground tunnels, and I was going for costume fittings, and they were like, it looks like you're pretty much gonna get the job. And I'm like, oh, this is so great. What job? And so they were interested in having me as Goofy, a costume character. I would have been on the main stage, but Goofy, because I am 5'10" and a half. So obviously I would be Goofy. That makes sense. In that same moment, my agent.
I'm sorry, it's so ridiculous.
It's the most ridiculous story. It's so,
yeah, I love it.
Also like, what is the universe? In the same moment, my agent calls and was like, hey, can you come back to New York, or when are you coming back? Because Mary Poppins and The Little Mermaid want to see you for final callbacks. So I'm like, thank you so much. Well, Disney World, I gotta go back home. And I auditioned
I got
for both.
to go.
And I happened to get Mary Poppins, and it changed the course of my life, especially with the company.
Yeah. I mean, but isn't there such a lesson in that, like where sometimes like you can see the varying paths, and sometimes it's so laughable and ridiculous that you're like, yeah, no. And then the thing that you were supposed to do opens up. Like that's a testament to like how the importance of timing. So you were a performer on Mary Poppins. What was that? So you've been on a couple of shows. Like I think for someone who's not been on stage, like can you describe like what that feels like to like you've been in rehearsals and you've got the music and you've got the costumes and then those curtains open, like what does that feel like for someone who's never done that before? Like what does that feel like?
Yeah, so Mary Poppins was just so. First of all, Mary Poppins, I did the first national Broadway tour of it. And so we did a few things here in New York, and then we flew out to Chicago. We were planned to do a sit down. It was a 6-month sit down. So I got an apartment in Chicago. It was so amazing. This was a big production contract. Like it's huge. Like this was like the coveted show to get, and I booked it, and by all the forces of the universe and God, I was so, so happy and so blessed. And so you go in and, I'm meeting all these new people. And it came at such a moment in my life where this was perfect for me. I have loved the show forever. I was right. I felt like I was in the right place at the right time. And I remember going through rehearsals being like, we are in the big leagues. Like, this is amazing. And, we worked so hard every day. This cast was unbelievable. And we're still close to this day because we were in the trenches together. Worked so hard, dancing, singing, acting, all the above. And there's one moment in time that comes, and that's the first time we have something called the sits probe. And at the sits probe, it's the moment where you're pretty much done rehearsing the show in like the studio, and they bring the orchestra to a common space, and you meet for the first time, and you get to sing alongside this full-bodied orchestra, and it's the most glorious sound, hearing like the music that you're going to perform for the unseeable future with the show. I'm like, wait, we're going to do this 8 times a week with this sound? Oh my goodness. And that is such a magical moment, because I think then it hits you and the cast like this is actually real. The second moment is when you walk into the theater and then you do your first run through on stage, like you're out of the studio, that safety net, that comfort of being in this rehearsal space in which you were for months, now that's gone. And now it's like, oh, we're about to be audience facing, and look at the stage and look at the crew and all the people who work backstage and front of house, and this is now your new family alongside the cast. That's such a magical moment, because we're in this, good, bad, and ugly. Like this is our family, and we have to make it work and make people happy and make the art and be committed to it. And that Mary Poppins was life-changing for me, for sure. What a magical time. And growing up with Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke, like this was a part of the thread of who I am musically, like intrinsically as a dancer, like everything Mary Poppins was, because my mother loved it, because my grandmother loved it, my family loved Mary Poppins, and to be singing this music and in such a spectacular way, unbelievable moment. Can't still believe that happened. it's years now down the road, and people still reference it in our company here at Disney on Broadway, and like what I do in office and in the theaters and the work that I'm doing now in New York City. They still talk about those years with Mary Poppins, and so yeah,
It's
I'm
so
so
cool.
lucky.
It's so cool. I mean, you deserve it, babe. I mean, it's such a like I've always loved musical theater. I grew up listening to it, and so it's so fun to hear because it's like I am not someone who wanted to be on the stage, but I'm very much someone who loves to watch and like the spectator like part of it. And it's just it's magic. It's absolute magic. And I think like
Magical.
yeah, it truly is. And there's something special about telling these stories and having the dance and having the music and it's like it's absolutely it changes lives. And so I would love to hear you talk about like so a little bit about what you do. So you're currently now at the Disney Theatrical Group, and so you work for Broadway, right? So it's like Aladdin and Lion King and all of that. And one of the cool things that I think that you do is you do a lot with advocacy. So you're on a lot of committees and things. So like what would you like to say about that, like kind of basically playing off of how art and how that can have an impact on the world?
Absolutely. Well, here at Disney Theatrical Group, I am currently the coordinator for education and audience engagement, and I just am in such an interesting and unique role here because I have the pleasure of working with our Disney Musicals in Schools program, which is domestic wide here in the United States and internationally. And we've built a program here, me and my team, that is about sustaining musical theater. So it's about sustainability in elementary schools, throughout the country, throughout the world, and just giving students and teachers and um, arts administrators this access to the arts that they may not have had otherwise, and through the Disney lens. So we're about, you know, exposure to the arts and bringing resources to education and really championing arts and education in our country and how important it is to have the arts and for children to be exposed to the arts at a young age. Also, the other side of my job, alongside working with Disney musicals in schools, is audience engagement. So, audience engagement here on Broadway, specifically for Disney, can mean dancing or teaching parts of choreography in a Broadway Disney on Broadway workshop, or facilitating a talk back with between our cast and our guests after a show, or working with some underserved communities and making sure that they have access to the theater and that they feel that they are having an inclusive moment and that they belong and they are welcome. Because I think, and this goes alongside with your question about advocacy, I think that there are so many communities that exist just even here in New York City, never mind the country or the world, that have Broadway and these amazing programs and the world class entertainment in their backyard, but they don't feel like they A, have the resource to access that art, and B, feel like they belong for whatever reason, gender, race, upbringing, demographic. And we want to bridge that gap, because if we're not going to do it, then what's going to happen for our future generation? Someone did it for me. Someone did it for, the people who work here at Disney on Broadway. So we're just trying to expand on that. And that's why I work with Broadway Advocacy Coalition and Broadway, like the BTCs of the world. And I mean, I can go on and on and on with Actors Equity Fights AIDS, like BCEFA, like what they do year after year, time after time, and all the money that is raised to support artists, but also to support the community. Unbelievable. And I will never stop doing advocacy work as long as I live. Even if I'm not working here at Disney, I just feel like it is part of my responsibility as a child of the arts, a child who is a child transparently of divorce. And I leaned into the arts because I loved it, but I also had to. I had to lean in because I felt like my mom is doing all that she can in the world to make sure that my brother and I had this amazing upbringing, but I also feel so much at home whenever I'm in the studio, whenever I'm in this building, whenever I'm, sitting, even if I'm not on stage in a Broadway show. And that's the power of arts and arts education and making sure that people feel like they are welcome. It has to be inclusive, or else we're never going to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I love that. So you have a political science degree and how much that informs your work, but also you have a lot of experience in hospitality and you co-own two bars. So how do you think that both of those things in your experience play off of, audience engagement, but also that kind of everyone is welcome, it's so for the audience, I've had the pleasure of going to one of these audience engagement things and we got to be filmed for a Thanksgiving thing. And Kiara, she is the star of the show. She was not actually on the stage, but she is the star of the show. And she managed the whole theater and with her signature Disney polish, which we'll get into. But but I think that I love that you're such a welcoming person. And I love that you work in hospitality, and you also have businesses, and how much that plays into your advocacy and also with what you do with your work too.
I mean, it goes back to just inclusivity and making sure people feel welcome. That those are the basic tenets of hospitality, right? Yes, we have these amazing bars and restaurants, and I want every single person, I don't care who you are, you walk in and you feel like you're home. You walk in, you feel like you're taken care of. You walk in, you feel like you're heard, you're seen, all of the above. And I feel the same way about work on Broadway and working for such a huge company and one of the leading arts entertainers in the world. I feel the same way, even if it's in a small restaurant or bar, here in Hell's Kitchen. You should feel that excitement, that welcome, that warmness, and also with the Disney polish. That's my favorite thing.
I love the Disney polish. So tell me a little bit. Well, I know what the Disney polish is, but for the listener, what's the Disney polish? This is something that you coined, right?
Yes, it's a phrase I coined. I don't even know when in space or time I did, but it just came about because there's something about, and I've learned this along the way working for the company for so long in different capacities, even when I was assisting in company management over at the Lion King at one point. And this was right as we were coming out of the pandemic and COVID. I remember saying to someone, I really pride myself on the Disney polish. And what that means to me is that you come being your best self, even if you are having the worst day ever. The minute you enter that door, that stage door, the front doors of the theater, the front doors of your office, just put your best foot forward if you can. I know it can't happen every day. No one is perfect, but I'm also not asking for perfection, right? Because what is perfection in the world? I'm asking for you to put your best foot forward and let your inner energy shine, but also have some class and grace. I always say, you can take me to a good old Irish bar, or you can put me at a table in the White House. I want a little bit of both. It's that synergy that to me makes a Disney polish. And that's what guests also expect, in hospitality, but also, working for Disney. That name comes with a lot of weight, but I feel so does an individual's name or someone representing any company. So, why not? We live our lives day in and day out. We work so hard. Be the best that you can be all the time. If you can, if you're up to it, I say, why not? Life is short. So that's
I love
Disney
that.
polish. It's silly, but I love it.
I love that. Well, and I think you're so good at this too, because I think sometimes you're in meetings where things are getting just out in the world. Sometimes if we're at a bar or something and people are being a little bit annoying, it's like I come in with guns blazing, but you always are you're so good at dealing with conflict with a sparkle, with pizzazz, and it's something that I only have friends that I feel like I can learn from, that I can be, kind of learn from them, it's and so I just keep imagining us at a bar on South Street where I'm, getting grouchy and you come in with your hi, the Disney polish,
I also credit that to my maybe political science degree. I don't know, because I think, and I'm like, maybe in another life I was an attorney. Like, I feel like I can talk to anyone and hopefully charm people, or like just pause for a moment, think like maybe they're not having the greatest day. And before I jump off the deep end and get like cranky and grouchy, or, they didn't give me the reaction that I expected them to give me, I give people like the benefit of the doubt, and I give them a few beats, and then, usually more often than not, it works out in a positive way, and we end up having a great time with whoever it is. So
I think you could charm literally anybody and get what you want. Well, moving on. Let's talk about like how art can impact the world. Because I think when I was preparing for this, and I told you about this a little bit offline, like when we were talking a little bit ago, and I was thinking, so Into the Woods is my very favorite musical. And with everything that's been going on in the world, I just kept thinking of this song that Bernadette Peters, so of course I watched the VHS on repeat of Into the Woods. And so I just kept like, yes, I know. So I had this song come to my mind. That's towards the end. And, I kind of was thinking about what's happening politically, and, like I just love how much the arts can come to you in times of need, and how they can really impact how you see the world. And I would love to hear your thoughts on like the power of theater, and how like that can impact and change the world, and like what theater can bring to the world.
absolutely, I think this is, it can turn into a complicated answer, but simply, it really, really brings people together in a way that I've never seen before with anything else. The power of art in our community is so important, because there's a shared love, there's camaraderie, there is freedom, there is access, there is, a moment to have your voice heard, shared, reflected on stage, reflected in the classroom, reflected in something you may be drawing, taking a photo of someone or something, or it's the greatest form of expression, no matter what your art form is, or no matter what art you're an advocate for or supporter of. I think it really just it builds relationships, builds community. It brings a sense of joy and love and hope to our ever-changing world. And I think that we would be lost, whether you realize it or not, you would be lost without the arts. Like, sometimes I have this conversation, and it can be with someone in finance or politics, and until we actually speak about it and the thread to their lives, like, everyone knows someone in the arts, whether or not you realize it or not, or the fact that arts has impacted your life. Whether or not you realize it, it has. The arts impact every single person. So it's so important that we keep arts alive. And starting, once again, putting my education hat on, it starts early on, early childhood, early education. And, you even see NFL players who I've had the honor of speaking to, in which the arts have impacted their lives and the trajectory of their career. And they never thought like, oh yeah, I was in 101 Dalmatians when I was a kid, and now I'm a star NFL player, but that taught me to have confidence. And, I was able to speak to people, look them in the eye, help others. All of these attribute to why the arts are important.
Absolutely. Well, I think even if you think about like the pandemic, like how much people were consuming content, it's like, which was like television and movies and songs. And, it's like, and, certain art forms like musical theater had to go on pause during the pandemic. And like what a loss that is to not be able to see like dance in person, to not hear music in person. And, it's like what lifts someone's mood quicker than a song, it's like, and having that energy of like everybody working together. And I often like to think of, life as being on a small scale is also like representative of the world in general. And it's like life, if it operated like a play, you have all of these different roles and everybody is important. And, it's like, and how important that is, like to feel the energy of humanity and to like find the beauty in things. And Anyway, so yeah, I think that the arts, it's a wonderful thing. So I would love to talk to you about a little bit about so you are also, so yes, you work with Disney on Broadway, and you are now a Tony nominated co-producer. So I know. I am a big cheerleader for you, and you think I'm ridiculous, and I am. You're not wrong, but it's very fucking exciting. So what was that like?
Your check's in the mail, by the way.
Well, I guess I should tell the audience what show, so that then fine. Cabaret for the Kit Kat Club. You know, it's like, I mean, epic. And what I love about that show is, you know, you had seen it in London and you had come back and you're like, Brittany, like, I just saw a show and I'm going to figure out how to get it here. And you did. And it's a Tony, like, how, like, tell me about this. Tell the world about this, because it's so very exciting and I'm very proud and I'm allowed to brag about you because I love you.
Oh, thank you. You're such a great friend. I don't know what I would do without you. Thank you for the support. This is what I talk about all the time. Like, women supporting women. Like, let's go. And honestly, like, that's one of the reasons, you know, women supporting women, especially it can be very insular here on Broadway, and especially in this realm of producing, where seeing a woman as a producer, but also seeing a woman of color as a producer is, you know, we're a rare breed once again. And I am so fortunate to have these amazing women, not only who I work with here at Disney, but also people that I've met and women that I've met in the Broadway League, and then my friends. You know, I would not have been invited to co-produce on Cabaret if it wasn't for another woman. That woman's Julie Boardman. I will forever give her roses, beyond flowers, roses, gilded in gold if I could, because she is one of the advocates for women advancing in theater. Like, I've never seen such a person where she's so selfless, and it reminds me of you, actually. Selfless, and she's a connector of good people. Like, she's one of the people that, you know, said, hey, Kiara, I have this opportunity. And she didn't know at the time that I was obsessed with Cabaret after I came back from seeing it in London. Like, she didn't know. And the minute she brought this opportunity to me and it was put on the table, I lost my mind, because I'm like, side note, I've been obsessing of how can I be involved with this, and now divine intervention, here you are. And she really, really bolstered me and helped me along the way. And it was my first producing venture for Broadway. Like, I had done small things with dance and choreography and, you know, smaller cabarets, but never such a major, you know, production. This is like Cabaret revival starring like major movie stars and Broadway stars. And here I was, little me, little 5'10" and a half of me, coming on in as a co-producer. And I always say, not until the curtain goes up did I, you know, share this with, you know, a lot of people, because I wasn't sure if it was going to happen, but I worked my tail off, and you know, the universe said, stars are aligned, girl. Keep going. You got this. And through the support of my family and my friends, I got to see my name on opening night. We had a back-to-back opening night. That weekend almost killed me. But a back-to-back opening night, and finally I opened the playbill, and there I was, listed as a co-producer, and I couldn't believe it. I said, okay, now I can tell the world that I've been working on this. And that was also a surreal moment. That was, you know, through all the grit, that was the glory at the end of that rainbow. So very fortunate for the experience, and still continuing on and looking, you know, for what the future holds in producing for me. I love it. I loved diving in on that side of producing, you know, as opposed to the creative side, which I'm more comfortable in as a dancer, a choreographer. I've produced other things, you know, sitting at the creative table, but here coming into such a huge production, and folks who have way more experience than me producing, and them, you know, really embracing me and holding my hand through the process. It was really beautiful. And just to have that trust in me, I felt very fortunate. So still can't believe it some days. And I got
it's another pinch me.
out of it.
And you got a Tony nomination. What? It's like, yes,
wild,
I remember.
Wild.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, it was earlier this year, and I just remember, like, I even downloaded so I could stream it, because I'm like, well, when this happens, I have to be able to watch. It's like, so I love that this happened for you, and so much more to come, and it's wonderful. It's like another pinch me moment, and it's just like, and I can just imagine like your mom just kind of just like look at her baby girl, who's like got a Tony nomination now, and it's like, and it's just incredible. So yeah, I mean, it's special. So, and talking about, friends and talking about community. So you're someone, so for the audience, I don't know how Kiara manages to do all that she does, because not only is she got this like baller job and she's got 2 restaurants that she co-owns with her husband and a couple other people, she also has 2 twin babies that are 3, and they're the cutest little nugget babies. And she still finds time to hang out with me. And it's one of those things where I'm like, girl, and normally marrieds, I find, never have time for their single girlfriends. And Kiara has really made it a point. And I would love to talk to you about that, because I think that community and community building and prioritizing when you're so busy, like it actually really means a lot to me, that you were able to do that, because I think, it's unusual. And I know you always say that this is the Broadway way, but I'm like, but outside of Broadway, it's not typical. So I'd love for you to talk about that.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. I feel like, once again, like, number one publicist, like, Brittany, many careers you have. My goodness. So amazing. Thank you, my love. I just think, your friends are your chosen family. And I talk about the Broadway community being this way. And if you're not privy to the Broadway community and you don't understand this, or like you said, outside of it, I don't know any other way. Like, your family's your family, sure, but your friends are your chosen family. And I feel like I find time for my chosen family. Like, I find time for my family, but you all ground me. And like, I need people to ground me. And maybe that sounds selfish, but it's coming from a selfless place, because I want to hear about what you are doing, and what new and exciting things my friends have going on, and tell me about your career. You talk about Broadway day in and day out, all the live long day. I want to hear about something else, like who did you photograph today? Like, what amazing designers did you meet? Like, that to me is so interesting, and it just snaps me back into this reality that is not so insular. I'm not saying that I don't love what I do and the people on Broadway, but it's nice to have a variety, and to have this community that you've built. And now, as we're getting older, I'm not exactly like, going to a club every night. Not exactly, no. Not at all.
We don't do that, no.
So I don't need hundreds and hundreds of friends. I love when I can sit over a glass of wine with a friend or 2 or 3, and we can have a moment that is meaningful, and we can laugh and be joyful and appreciate one another. That is so important to me. Like, I can't imagine my life and being who I am without my friends and my girlfriends and my guy friends. And so.
Well, I love that. I love that about you. And I think for people who, are transplants, who don't have people who live close by, or who are people like me who don't really have a lot of connections from where the person I once was, it's like, it really means a lot that I've been adopted into your family, it's like, and that like you are like an adopted sister, it's like, it's something that I really cherish. And I think it's really special that you make the time, because that is not something that everybody does. And but that kind of goes back to, I think, when you said that you found home, your parents are divorced and you found home through the arts. It's like you also found home by, incorporating people that you met and are friends with from the arts, and also like your girlfriends. And, it's like home is where you find it, So anyway, I love that. So I also wanted to talk to you a little bit. So we are recording this a couple of days before the election and we are going to air this. Yes. And we are going to air this the day after the election in the United States takes place. And I did prep you that this was that I wanted to talk about this, but I think You told me a beautiful story about back in 2008 when Obama became the president and what that meant for you as a Black woman who lives in New York. And I would really love to talk to you about like kind of a little bit about that, of like what that felt like. And also, we don't know, like when this airs, we're not going to know who won. And I think like thinking about that and what we have to do to move forward, no matter who the candidate ends up winning, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. I mean, I can get emotional thinking about it, but I remember so many moments. I remember my mom going down to DC like for the inauguration for President Obama. I remember election night specifically. It was such a New York moment. I was down at an election night party. It was like a professional party um, thrown by like some Black business organization, which they did on a regular basis. But this one was like the one to be at. And it was in a smaller restaurant, but like a good, maybe 75 people there. We were watching the results come in and just the thought, like the fact that President Obama had the nomination from the Democratic nomination was huge alone. So now here we are in November, and I remember watching results come in, and then finally they announced, President-elect Barack Obama. People lost their minds, like in the greatest way possible. I've never seen New York. And like we were down in like the West Village. I've never seen New York like that. People rejoicing, not only in the restaurant, in the streets. We could have had a ticker tape parade that night. In particular, I'll never forget two ladies who were there, and they were older, of a significant age, and we had just connected, them and a girlfriend I was with. And I remember them telling us stories all through the night about like they had marched in the civil rights movement, and they had marched alongside, Martin Luther King Jr. and all these amazing civil rights leaders. And they never thought that they would see the day that a Black man would be elected to the president of the United States. And I remember us just cherishing those moments and those words. And still to this day, I do. And we walk them from, if you know anything about demographics of New York City or landscape, we walk from the West Village back to the Penn Station because they need to get back on their train. This was like, people, we've been partying for hours and hours, and we walked them back because we couldn't get enough of tell us everything, tell us the stories, tell us the history. We would not be here if it weren't for you two little ladies. Like this is your living history. And that night was so magical to me. And, I know history cannot repeat itself, like physically and literally cannot repeat itself. But I am praying that and hoping that come the results of this election, we do not, revert back to a time where people were not respected, and you were not looked at as a human being because of the color of your skin or your religious beliefs or your personal beliefs. And I'm just praying for a new era of equality and kindness, and being inclusive in everything that we do, and being understanding, because I feel like what we're missing right now, if you're not on the right side of the election, is compassion, right? Because we can talk politics all the live long day. I can. And there's something about, the political world that we're living in our country, that sets us apart from the rest of the world. And I think that sometimes it can be a gift and a curse, because there is more that exists other than just our presidential election. However, as one of the leaders of the world, we need to realize that whoever our leader is in representing the United States on a global stage, is so important for how everyone else views us and recognizes what we want to bring to the world stage. And I hope it's a woman of color. I'm praying that when this goes to air, like, please, I hope I'm wearing my Kamala green blazer for a reason, and my like Chuck Taylors for a reason, and I can be proud again, because I want to be proud again of who our leader is. And I want my daughter to grow up knowing like, wow, we're going into another era of love and compassion, like I said earlier, and we're doing what's right, and we're not going to go back. And someone who is in a biracial relationship, who has biracial children, I don't want them to struggle in ways that I did, or my parents did, or my grandparents did, or my great grandparents did. I want us to really be, living in this time of evolution, and I want the equality has to be there. Like we can't move forward without it, and no more hate. Like I don't know if this is something that is passed down generationally, or it is something that is acquired and learned, but we have to cut it out, because we're not going to live up to where we want to be, if that makes sense. Like as a country, as a nation, we can't move forward and hold our heads up high if this is stemming from hate. If that makes sense.
Completely makes sense. Well, and I think too, it's like, this is like why I wanted to speak with you about it, because you have a political science degree and it's something that we talk about offline all the time. And, I think it's something where, like, I kind of want to reference like what you mentioned before, like it's like building on the experiences and shoulders of the people before us. It's like we couldn't have gotten to where we are now, like in terms of the progress that has been made, without the advocacy of people that were before us, and people who did, march, and people who did use their voice. And I think the arts in particular is such a beautiful way of connecting humanity. And I think that the kind of loss of humanity is what has gotten us into the mess that we're in. And I think that something that is like a shared value is the arts. It's something that it kind of helps to kind of bridge that gap, right? It's like it helps to teach you, it helps to give you perspective on another way of being. And it also is a way to like feel connected. Like there's nothing better than being in a stage and hearing a standing ovation. It's like I've been with you in those rooms where you hear these songs and sung by incredible people where they hit the note just right, and you just want to weep because it's so beautiful. And that's the power of art, and that's the power of humanity when we work together. And I think that my hope is that we are going to be on the right side of history. And also it's like that we're able to, no matter who wins, this is something that we're going to have to keep going and talking about. And advocacy is never done. There was this big thing about, white women in particular. Like, I understand the assignment, and I didn't know at first that was appropriated from Black culture, that statement. So for one, at first I did not know about that. But two, it was like, it doesn't stop at who you vote for. Like, and that's the thing. It never stops. Like, you have to use your voice and advocate, and you're so good about doing that. And I think that you use that in your work, but also who you are as a human, and I think we don't have too much time left, but I would love to hear what message you would want to leave the world with. Like, what's the legacy that you want, and what you would want your children to take with them, like when they think about their mom?
I think always lead with kindness and compassion to whoever you may come in contact with. Like I ground myself in that. Because it has led me to where I am today. And I think it's so important to know that a person that you may interact with, whether once or every day of your life, they know that they are respected and they are heard, and you're not leading with hate, or you're coming from a place where you are set out to harm another human being. For whatever your political views are, we can have a Democratic or Republican side. That's fine. It's existed for ages, but don't let it come from a place of hate and misalignment and being there to take away the rights of another being. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. And I think a part of my legacy is, yes, arts advocacy for sure, and making arts inclusive for all, and also just even outside of the arts, I think that we need to give people a chance to be heard and seen, and it's okay to not agree all the time. It is okay, and everyone is unique and everyone has their own thoughts, but there is always a way to come to a common place of respect, right? We don't have to walk hand in hand off into the distance, but there is something about respect that, you know, some of our politicians could learn a little bit about that. And we don't have to get into names, but
They need
I've
some
seen
Disney
it,
polish.
especially in this. Yeah, I mean, like, it's really, it's mind blowing how respect has on one side left the table. And I think if you don't ground yourself with the values I just spoke about, then I don't know. I don't know how I could go to sleep at night. Let me speak from the I. I want to close my eyes every night and go to sleep thinking that I'm doing the best that I can in this world. I'm treating people with respect and kindness and compassion, and giving people a chance. Give people a chance to express themselves, no matter who they are. And for goodness sake, it's like, let people have their rights and have the right to love and have the right to be with whoever they want to be with and have the rights over their own bodies. Like, those are some core values that I want to instill in my children also. And I want to be this role model for them. You know, that's a part of my legacy as well. My husband is so supportive and so amazing, and he is his own person. And I think what he brings to the table is amazing and strong and wonderful. And I can go on and on and on, but it is different for me. I am a Black woman living in 2024 in an industry where people who look like me, it's still rare, especially on the side of what I'm doing now. And I want my kids to be proud, and I want them to know it's okay to work hard and that it's okay to make mistakes. But if you go and do all of those things, but you're leading with love, then you're going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay in the end. So.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah. And that's how it should be. Yeah, just like I always joke that you're a walking Disney princess, because you really are. Like, every time we go anywhere, it's like she just sparkles everywhere she goes, and she's always dressed to the nines, and she's got a big smile on her face.
Oh
but it is true. It's like, but sometimes, like, even if there's like a little bit, like, people are getting rowdy at the bar, you know, like, Kiara takes no prisoners, but she does it with a smile on her face. You know, it's like, so it's like that's that born and bred New Yorker. You know, it's like no one's gonna push Kiara around, but you're never gonna know how it hit you. You know,
but
she
more
does it
so
with
me. Like,
sweetness.
I feel like I'm a protector though. Like, I'm a protector also. So like, if I, you know, I can read a situation, you know, 10 miles away, and I'm like, wait, does someone need protecting here? And sometimes it's unwarranted, but if it's a friend and I know them, like, I'm gonna step in and listen, you're not gonna mess with my people, okay? Yeah, I'll do it with a smile, but then when that smile leaves my face, then y'all better run.
That's what I always say too. I'm really nice until I'm not. But it is true. I mean, it's that, like, eldest daughter too, right? We're like with little brothers. Like, both of us are the eldest daughters with little brothers. And so we were like, oh no, you know, it's like, we'll be nice, but like, these are our little chicks, you know? And it's, so I think that that's something that
exactly
we have in common. Yeah, I love that.
Exactly. Like, my little brother, even my little brother is like, he's my height. He might be a little taller now. He's not so little anymore. He's a grown man, but he is so amazing, successful. And that's we can do a whole nother session speaking about him.
Yeah, we should.
But he always says, he's like, we're grown ups now. And like, he lives in LA and it's an amazing career. And he's like, you don't still have to protect me. I was like, I will always protect you. You're my little brother forever. And I sometimes embarrass him online and social media. And I'm like, forever the best little brother ever. And I can't help but gushing, but I'm a natural protector. Like, big sisters, no. Yeah.
Big sisters,
That's
no.
just it.
Yeah, big sisters, no. I love that. I love that. Well, I know we're basically out of time, but I have 3 more questions for you. What advice would you give your younger self? And that could be either as a teenager, a child, or even 10 years ago.
It's okay to make a mistake. It is okay to make a mistake. And in the words of one of my favorite characters in a musical, and part of the reason why I'm in musical theater, the sun will come out tomorrow. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Annie. It's okay. Mistakes happen. No one's perfect. And a day, if you are fortunate enough, you will have another day, and a day after that, and a day after that, and live life to the fullest.
Yeah, that's great advice. I love that. All right, so I always ask people what their secret delight is. Actually, I have one more before that. We'll do the secret delight in a second. Where do you envision? Because I forgot to mention. I mean, I told you before, but this is a time capsule, so it's nice to be able to look back like in 5 years. So, where do you envision yourself in 5 years?
Taking a nap? No.
You got two twins that are three, so yeah, I think a nap sounds like a good plan.
um, in 5 years, first and foremost, as a mom, I can't wait to see how my kids are still in that age. They're like squishy and 3 and like everything is mommy, mommy, mommy. But in 5 years, like I can't imagine when they're 8 and they're really going to be turning into their own people. And as twins, I'm living very much in this twin world right now, like with a boy and a girl, and just seeing them already develop. I can't imagine when they're 8, approaching the 9 and the 10 and the preteen years. I'm so excited for it, but also I might be still in their nursery in a straitjacket because I'm going to be so sad that they're not my little itty bitty. So, Britt, I hope you still love me then, because I may be a little cuckoo.
We might both be in the asylum together, so we'll be like, who are the girls cackling over there? It's you and me. So Juan always has to lower the audio when I start cackling. He has in the podcast. He always like sees the spikes, and so he always preemptively has to lower it because I blast everybody's eardrums. So sorry.
Oh my goodness. I mean, and then in addition to like the mom vector and my family and my husband and everything, and just I'm so grateful. It's like everything I ever dreamed of, and it's hard work, but love that. And just seeing our kids get older and just live like full lives. I think professionally, I would love to hopefully be like still in producing and really like finding my way and my own voice as a Black woman on Broadway as a producer. And really leaning into the advocacy work and tying that into my producing work, and giving more voices to folks who look like me, or young ladies up and coming in the industry. And I am a mentor for a few organizations, but really being a mentor, and having mentees that they can feel comfortable coming to me and asking me questions about the business and the industry, and just really being a leader. I feel like I am in some ways a leader in all facets of my life, but to really have this established position as a leading producer on Broadway is a goal of mine for sure, because then I can create the art that I want and loop in the people that are underserved and they don't have the voices that we need right now. And I'm excited for that prospect.
I love that. I can't wait to see what comes next. I can't wait. Yeah, this is so exciting. Okay, so last question. I always ask people what to think of their secret delight. That is meant to stay a secret, so you do not have to reveal your actual secret delight. So what is something that's a not so secret, or something that is delighting you this week?
Like in general, or like that I hope? Okay, I got it. Not so secret delight. I guess if you know me, you're going to know these things.
That's okay.
Love the Real Housewives franchise, specifically New York, because I feel like, oh wait, this is my backyard. Like, can I be the Real Housewives of Broadway? And I just love seeing a different lens of New York from the one that I'm living in. But then I also love seeing like the similarities in places that I go and I've been, and I love that, accompanied by like a glass of Sauvignon Blanc, accompanied by like some really good Italian or Mexican food. Like that is a not so secret delight. I love food. I love fun, not so heavy television. And, I love good friendship and having good company and just living our best New York dreams here.
Absolutely. I think one of my favorite delights is the onion dip at Harry's and a glass of Sauvignon Blanc with you, and it's a good one.
That onion dip. If I ever get my hands on that recipe, I have to call the chef. I feel like there's a way and someone's going to give us that recipe. It is too delightful.
It truly is. It truly is. Oh, well, this has been so much fun. I could talk to you for a million years and but you're a busy woman. So how can everybody find you if they would like to keep up with you?
Oh, you can keep up with me on Instagram at KikiLove12. So KIKILOVE12.
Perfect.
Yay.
And she is private, so she screens. So she might, as long as you don't look like a creeper. And
if not there, come visit us on Broadway. Come look for me.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Do you want to mention what your bars are? We got to get some people to come to your bars.
Sure. The first one is Hold Fast Kitchen and Spirits, and located in Hell's Kitchen, New York. You can look it up at Hold Fast NYC on Instagram or holdfastnyc.com. And the Reading Room, so Reading Room NYC and thereadingroom.com. And we have one up and coming. It's called Buy and Buy, and it's also going to be located in Hell's Kitchen, and more details coming on that soon.
Fantastic.
So, lots of things brewing.
As they should for my fellow witchy sister. Anyway, I love you, babe. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're so busy, and it was such a delight to be able to have you on the show. Mwah. I love you, babe.
Thank you. Bye. You're the best.
Bye, honey. And that's a wrap. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you feel so inclined, please leave a rating or a review. It helps bring these stories to more ears. One listener messaged me on Threads, username Chris Loves Fishing. This is what they said. I have gotten through the last couple of days listening to your podcast. They are helping me think about other things and remembering that there are so many who are interested in things other than their narrow world. Thank you. Keep them coming. I really appreciate you telling me this. This was sent to me on November 7th when I was feeling particularly hopeless and discouraged and unsure if my efforts to share these stories were making an impact. So thank you. I needed to hear it. And I'm so happy that these stories have touched your life and gave you respite in our current landscape. May these recordings find the people who need them. We'll see you next week, and big thank you to my producer, Juan Paulini Diaz, and to Stephanie Bruckler, my graphic designer who handled the cover art and brand identity. Both have been invaluable in the creation of this show. See you next week.